Skyfall is a spy film and is directed by Sam Mendes and stars Daniel Craig. So as you can see, I'm joined by Film Guru. This is his favourite movie of the James Bond series. And while I don't think it's as good as my other favourite Daniel Craig Bond film, Casino Royale, this is probably one of the better, technically well done Bond films, because the cinematography is one of the best things about this film, and we will get into that soon. What did you think of this movie?
I loved it. Like you said, I think it is probably one of the best Bonds. It's just so well done. It's a great story, beautifully shot and acted, and it strips everything bare, and I think it's fantastic in that regard.
This is definitely a step in the right direction after the misfire that was Quantum of Solace, because this time the film fixes the mistake of not making it a direct sequel to Quantum of Solace. This film goes back to what the Bond films were, a simple standalone movie.
Yeah, it just felt like one of the older Bonds, like Goldfinger's probably the best example of it, and he does have the car back in this sort of thing. I just felt that, I agree, it was taking things in the right direction. It was saying, this is where we're going now, this is the Bond that we have, and we can go anywhere, and we've sort of caught up to the prequel sort of idea of what they were doing before the other Bonds. But then, yeah, they just sort of destroyed it in the next film. But I just thought this was a really good direction they went in, and it was trying something different and getting back to what made Bond popular to begin with.
Yeah. And this film kind of feels like it should have been the end of the series, because the final act pretty much says this is as big as we're going to get, because they literally burned James Bond's house down. And like you said, the film has great performances, especially Javier Bardem, who plays one of the best villains in the entire franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's kind of creepy but terrifying, but in a very interesting character. It felt like they spent a lot of time developing that character and really putting it together to show you a very interesting sort of aspect of a character that has something to do with M's past, and I really liked that. And I thought his scenes between him and Daniel Craig were fantastic, and the way they bounced off each other was very interesting to watch.
I also think this is probably the best performance we get from Judi Dench as M, because one of the biggest reasons why Judi Dench worked as M was because she acted as a motherly figure to Bond, where with the previous M actors, they pretty much were just like, oh, they're his boss, and it's like, oh, here's your mission, go do this. But with her, it was different, because she actually showed care and concern for him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. She really did care for him, even though she didn't say it. And there's some great banter between her and Bond as well. And I thought that harks back to the relationships that he formed with some people in a lot of the early Bonds. But yeah, this is a great example of that.
Yeah, and she probably gets the best send-off for any James Bond character. Because the fact they killed her off, it pretty much says, like, this is our only M. Like, no one's gonna top her. And, like, Ralph Fiennes, who takes over the role, while he's fine, yeah, he just doesn't have that same, warm, embrace that Judi Dench had.
No, well, I guess with him, too, it felt a lot more like the other Bond, bosses that we had before in the earlier film.
He just felt like another one of his bosses, pretty much.
Yeah, there wasn't... Because we didn't really know a lot about him, and it just felt like, even though, like you said, even though he was solid in his performance, it just didn't ring true, or didn't have enough oomph or depth to the character for us to really care, where M had a lot of depth. And we got to learn quite a bit more about her in Skyfall than we did previously, and I thought that was a great way to look at her character as well.
This film definitely feels different from the previous Bond films, because Sam Mendes directed this, and he makes the film feel more epic than it is, which I'm a bit hit or miss on, because, James Bond films, I don't really expect them to be these huge epic films, because they don't really feel like they need to be that. But like, what he does with Skyfall specifically, he does something interesting. The action scenes were top-notch, the music score was well done, and like I said earlier, this film has the best cinematography in the entire series, mainly because the cinematography in this film was done by the legendary Roger Deakins.
Yeah, absolutely. He sort of outdid himself in a lot of it. There's this great fight. It's a silhouette, so the whole fight sequence is done in silhouette, which is a great choice and looks fantastic. And you're not quite sure who's got the upper hand and who doesn't in the fight, which I like. And when he goes to... There's a club in Shanghai that he goes to, that he comes in on a boat. It's just beautifully shot and looks fantastic. I love the use of the colours too, the yellows, the blues, the reds, and just the neon lights too, in particular, fight sequences are just fantastic. It just looks beautiful. And one of my favourite sequences is the opening shot where Bond is sort of out of focus and then he walks into focus and lights thrown on his face. And I think that's fantastic. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, I think where the cinematography stands out for me is in the finale where it's at James Bond's house and when the house goes up in flames. Like, it's one of the most beautiful looking sights, and I like how this whole final act was lit and framed as well. And unlike the cinematography from Quantum of Solace where it kept cutting every single second, Roger Deakins knows to hold on certain shots and let the shots actually affect the viewers.
Another sequence I really liked that was well shot and put together was that whole opening train scene where they're fighting on top of the train. I thought that was so well done and looks really good. Yes, there were visual effects in it, but it did still look really well done.
And of course, not to forget, the song by Adele is just great. Just any song she sings, she can just make it sound heavenly and angelic as well.
Yeah, I think without that song at the start, it wouldn't be a Bond film.
Yeah.
And all of them do, all the people who've done this, the song, have done a really great job with it.
And it's much better than that piece of shit song from Quantum of Solace, because that really freaking
Isn't that
sucked.
the one with Jack White?
Yeah.
I liked that song.
I don't like it. It kind of just felt the most un-Bond song ever.
Yeah, it was different. Well, that film felt completely different anyway, and I think they were trying to do that with the music, but it felt like a bridging film between Casino Royale and Skyfall, but it didn't really feel like its own thing.
Yeah. I guess. Now, I don't exactly like the film as much as you. I still think there are a few flaws to this film. I do think that after the opening credits, the film does drag a while, trying to like, oh, Bond's in hiding, and then it's like, oh, the world's in danger, Bond comes back, and then it kind of like takes a while for him to, you know, get along with his mission, and he trots around like, oh, da-da-da-da-da. But once he captures the villain, that's kind of where things get interesting for me, because then it becomes a chase where the villain's trying to hunt down M and kill her, and Bond's trying to protect her. And from when the villain comes back to Britain onwards, that's when I just love the film. But yeah, the fact that this film was 2.5 hours, I don't think it needed to be that long, and it did kind of make some scenes drag and boring in some places.
Yeah, I tend to disagree. I think it was well paced and it was sort of revealing things. This film really felt like a character study more than the other Bonds, where, you know, in the other Bonds, Bond comes in, he's got a mission, he does it, you know, there's a girl, you know, he defeats the villain, he becomes a hero, whatever. But in this one, it was like they were really taking their time to look at him as a person, as a character, and trying to develop him a bit more and to see the scars that he has, the physical scars and the mental scars of everything that's happened to him along the way. And I just felt that it took its time to do that, to express that and show that. But yeah, I do agree, once the villain gets back to Britain, it becomes much more interesting, sort of fun ride that keeps going. What I love is the film's sort of so stripped bare that even when he gets the weapons, it's sort of just a basic sort of weapon, and I kind of like that. And the whole film really felt like they were trying to destroy the old and bring in the new. Yes, Bond had been around for a while, but it was like taking Bond in a new direction where the rest of it was trying to get rid of the stuff had come previous. And that's why I felt this film sort of stand alone in its execution, because it just felt like it had forgotten the stuff before and there was nothing ahead of it, and it was just really well done. But yeah, like I said, I think everything that happened in this film, the pacing of it was perfectly done and it worked for the story it was telling. Yes, it did pick up later in the film, which is fantastic, and that sequence within I think it was the courthouse, is just absolutely fantastic to watch. Everybody's there, everybody's got a gun, and it's just, there's no words spoken, it's just fantastic sequence. And I think that's one of the pivotal sequences in it, and also obviously the end where he burns down the
Bond's house,
and you see Javier Bardem just walking in front of it, which is absolutely fantastic shot.
Yeah. Overall, while I don't think it's as good as Casino Royale, I love Casino Royale very much. And this film, it gets there in some places, but in other places it has some elements that do hold it back slightly for me. I'm not going to deny that this wasn't a technical masterpiece. On the contrary, it very much was. The best cinematography in any of the Bond films. It was acted well, the music was great. I love the set pieces, I love the settings. The action scenes were very well done, and the stunt work was impressive. And after seeing that piece of shit Quantum of Solace, this was just very much a welcome change.
Like I've said, I thought this was an interesting film, that it was trying something different, that it felt like we'd finally got the Bond that we'd wanted from when they began Casino Royale to now. It was the Bond that we sort of grew up, well, I grew up knowing. And previous was like the prequel idea of before everything happened, and we get to see how he becomes 007, stuff like that, and they're kind of interesting. But this was sort of the pinnacle, in a way, of those movies. And I just felt that they could have went anywhere with this film, because it was like a breath of fresh air into the series that has come a little bit stale, even though I agree Casino Royale was fantastically done and a great reintroduction to that character. I just felt that the other films were a bit stale, and this was trying to breathe new life into it. And it just felt that they were trying to say, look, this is where Bond is now. We can go anywhere. We can do anything. And then they go into Spectre and bring in a villain that we know
from 50 years ago.
Yeah, and it just felt like it was going backwards, where this one felt it was finally moving forwards, and the next film was backwards. And yeah, I was a bit disappointed in the direction they chose to go with the
and it was more disappointing that Sam Mendes directed the following film, and that, like, you know, he directed a great film here and then kind of like turned it a piece of shit in the next one.
Yeah, it was sort of bloated, and it wasn't a very good interpretation of a Bond film, I didn't think, even though there were good performances in it. I just felt, it was just sort of wasted in what they had achieved with this film.
And believe me, I will elaborate more on why Spectre sucks.
So for me, like I said, it's probably one of my favourite Bonds. It's very well done, well shot, well put together, well acted. Everything about it I like. I like the look and feel of it. I like the character development and the characters as well. I'm going to give Skyfall 4.5 out of 5.
And I'm going to give Skyfall an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to like my Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to my channel below. As always, I'm NETX5, and this is a Film Guru. Thank you for watching.